During the 1940s, more than 15,000 Palestinians were killed in dozens of massacres committed by Zionist forces. The first mass killing was recorded at Balah al-Sheikh, where at least 60 Palestinians were killed by the Haganah forces. In April 1948, an estimated 110 villagers were murdered by Zionist paramilitary forces in the village of Deir, near what is now occupied East Jerusalem. But the killings didn't stop there. After Israel was created, at least 200 villagers were reportedly killed in fighting and mass executions between May the 22nd and 23rd in 1948 at Tantura, near Haifa. Ilan Pappe is an Israeli historian who wrote the book The Ethnic Cleansing of Palestine. He's a professor of history at the University of Exeter and joins us now from Detroit in the US. Good to have you with us, sir, on the programme. How should we compare what happened?
Thank you for having me.
How should we compare what happened in 1948 to 2024? Is it comparable?
Well, there are some features which are comparable, but in many other respects, it's even worse than the events of 1948. You already mentioned yourself the difference in the numbers of Palestinians killed. But I think the main difference is that the impulse in 1948 was to try and expel as many Palestinians as possible. The massacres were then used in order to persuade people to leave. I think what we see now are massacres which are part of a genocidal impulse, namely to kill people in order to downsize the number of people living in the Gaza. Ethnic cleansing is a terrible crime against humanity, but genocide is even worse. So I think we are seeing a transition from using ethnic cleansing as the main methods of taking as much of Palestine as possible with as few Palestinians in it as possible. We are moving into a far more lethal method, that of genocide.
And that lethal method is voiced by government officials. I mean, in the first few months of the war, Israel's agriculture minister described the current displacement and persecution of Palestinians in Gaza as the Nakba of Gaza 2023. I mean, these comments are sort of in line with the way the government has been talking ever since it was put into power.
Yes, well, that is very interesting because for many, many years, official Israelis denied the Nakba, denied that they were responsible for ethnic cleansing that included more than 30 massacres of Palestinians. But they're now using it in a way that we always thought that they always said that they used, which was to try and eliminate the Palestinians in 1948. And they are now warning the Palestinians that they would do again or would perpetrate again the very crime that they claimed had never existed. So at least if something positive can come out of this horrific chapter in the history of Palestine, is at least for the world now not to deny anymore the crime that was committed in 1948, which is now admitted fully by the very Israeli politicians that you have just mentioned.
And of course, the Nakba in 1948, it was supported by Western states and colonial powers. There is a comparison to what we're seeing in 2024 as well, isn't there? Yet these very Western powers are also saying that there isn't a genocide going on, most of them anyway.
I think now it's even worse, because at the time in 1948, there was no television, people did not have smartphones, and it was relatively easy to cover up the Nakba, the ethnic cleansing, and to claim that it didn't exist. It is impossible to say now that people cannot know what is going on when it appears on our screens, whether our small screen or big screens. So I think the level of denial today is far more sinister, far more outraging, and really, I think, is one of the main reasons why the civil societies, even in the West, find it impossible to be silent anymore and are led now by a brave group students all around the United States and elsewhere to show that they know exactly what goes on and they do all they can to stop it.
Yeah, I did want to come to that question because global societies really are calling this a genocide and they're sort of calling their own governments out. Do you think, I mean, in more or less, we're going to European elections soon here in the European continent. The United Kingdom is going to go to a general election very soon. Do you think this is going to come back to bite these politicians, you might say in the posterior, for not listening to their public, who have been coming out in the hundreds of thousands in capital cities, not just in Europe, but across the world?
Well, first of all, I hope that it will. And we can mention also the election in the United States.
Yeah,
it's very clear that the Arab American vote and progressive people are now a bit doubtful whether they should support Biden, although they don't want to support Trump because of Biden's policy towards Gaza. I'm a bit skeptical that in the next elections in Europe, politicians would be still would change their basic indifference and the international immunity they have provided to Israel. But I'm confident that in the near future, beyond the 2024 elections, this kind of attitude that has been displayed by European politicians would come back to bite them because they are not representing faithfully their electorates when it comes to Palestine. They never did before, but in particularly in the last 7 months, their positions have been very different from the moral position displayed by most of the people who have a modicum of consciousness and decency in them when they understand what goes on in Gaza and when they're showing their support for the people of Gaza.
It's good to get your insights, sir, and the relationship to history as well. Ilan Pappe, thanks so much for joining us from Detroit. Thank you. Cameras have captured the struggle of Palestinian refugees then and now over the past 76 years. Palestinians say the ongoing Israeli war and the military expansion are clear evidence of a second Nakba.
Make sure to subscribe to our channel to get the latest news from Al Jazeera.